Hello and welcome to Bristol Reptile Emporium's YouTube channel. I'm Gail.
And I'm Michelle.
And today we are going to talk about UV. This is a subject we've been wanting to do for a while, but it can be quite complicated and we're trying to work out the best way of explaining it. And this is going to be an introductory one, not sort of like a massive in-depth heavy thing on UV, just a very introductory, just so you get some information. So first of all, UV, there is a massive range and it divides opinion quite a bit and it's ever evolving and stuff like that. So we'll just talk about the different types of UV and how it helps the animals and show you a few products. So first of all, Michelle, tell us the 3 types of UV.
So quite good because you've got alphabetical A here.
We do.
So you've got UVA, UVB and UVC.
Yeah, okay.
And the first one we can, well not the first one, but the one we can discredit completely is UVC. Because UVC is normally blocked by the atmosphere, and obviously the atmosphere is actually what protects us from UVC, because UVC is actually quite harmful to us and to reptiles, so we actually don't want that. So we can basically discredit that because none of the products that we're looking at are going to be providing that element of the spectrum.
Okay, great. And move on to the next one, UVA.
Yeah, so we're going to then jump back up the alphabet and go for UVA. So UVA is basically, we don't see any type of UV as humans. We're actually quite rubbish when it comes to this. So it's not part of our spectrum of light that we see. However, reptiles and birds can see UVA, UVB. It's part of their rainbow, if that makes sense. So UVA is something that is known to promote several areas within an animal when it's going through its life processes. So it is essential. It's very beneficial for them to have it. It's very natural, and most visual lights have got some kind of element within it, if that makes sense. And it's something which is really good for different parts of the life cycle within an animal.
Okay, great. That's a nice brief explanation. And how about the last one, UVB?
So this is the big daddy, basically. This is the one that causes all the controversy as to whether an animal needs it, whether an animal doesn't. I've got red in my hand here, and obviously he's a crested gecko, so he's a species that causes loads of controversy. Okay, so rather than going on about whether it's essential or it's not essential, let's look at what it does. Okay,
yeah. So
this is the techie bit, and I've kind of got to make sure I get this bit right now, because otherwise everybody will be screaming and shouting at us going, "That's not what it does! You've got it wrong!" Okay, so UVB,
yeah,
is basically part of the spectrum that enables, what it does is in the skin it creates a chemical reaction. That chemical reaction then allows a hormone to be produced, and that hormone, which is D3, then allows the animal to carry out different processes within its body. One of those processes is the absorption of calcium. Okay, now we can put as much calcium onto animals' foods as we like, but if we don't provide everything else that they need, it will go straight through their system and it does no good to them at all. Okay, right. So this is the tricky bit. So not only do we need to provide UVB, we also need to provide the correct temperature range for our animals as well, because we can provide UVB, but without heat the process isn't activated.
Oh, so you need both in combination.
This is about dot to dot, basically.
Yeah.
So we've got to we've got to provide it, we've got to have the right temperature range, and then the animal can create the body process to do what is natural, basically.
Right.
So the reason I've got red is because he is a controversial species. Because he's crepuscular, which means he's active dawn and dusk. Old school, we used to say, well, he wouldn't be exposed to UV because he's not active in that time period. So it means that he wouldn't need UV. Whereas now, as our knowledge of what these things do and how it affects our animals and things like that has improved and increased, we know that crepuscular species, although they're not out all day long in the sun, they still come in contact with it. And they actually do things to increase their likelihood of coming in contact with it. So there are studies with crested geckos in the wild where as the sun repositions, they reposition in where they're sat to help with their absorption.
Wow, that's really interesting. So it's quite essential that we do provide UVA and UVB for all reptiles.
If we can do it. So even like there are some species where we've always said no, they don't need it at all. So even things like snakes, where we've always kept them in darker conditions and things like that, we're now seeing some evidence that if we provide it, we have healthier animals.
Yeah. And that's what we want. We want our pets and our reptiles to be healthy and have a full and long life.
That's it, yeah. So, and that's the key point, also long life as well. So by providing these elements that old school keepers may see as extras, not basics, it means that our animals are reaching the longevity that that time period that they absolutely are designed to, and not having shorter lifespans.
Yeah. So now we know what the UVA and UVB does. We've just got a selection of products just to show you what they are. So Michelle, can you talk through the ones that I've got in my hand?
Yeah, so you have two different types. So you have something which are mercury vapors. Now, I just want to make clear, these are not a comprehensive full range of UVs that are on the market, okay? We're physically not large enough to hold that many products. So we're not even going to try. This is a small selection of UV products.
Okay.
There are a lot wider selection than this. Different manufacturers, and there's one or two different styles, but this is like the core, but it's one of those things. We just can't hold them all in our hands, basically.
Okay.
So what Gail's got in her hands is she has two mercury vapors. Now, mercury vapors are one of the few products that emit heat as well as light nutrients. So what you'll often hear UV referred to is light nutrients, which can be a bit confusing for new people to the hobby, because you're like, well, what on earth is that, and what are they chatting about? We're talking about UVB and UVA when it comes to light nutrients. So these two products emit heat, so they'll increase the temperature within your enclosure. They can't be regulated, they've just got to be on for a set period of time and then off for a set period of time. So that makes heating and lighting together a bit tricky. They're products that are commonly used in open top enclosures, because you can vent the extra temperature into the room, which is easier in some regards. Then the smaller bulb that Gail's got in her hand here, this is a compact UV. Now they're a little bit cheaper than some of the UVs on the market. They don't require a ballast, so they just screw into a fitting. But they've got the shortest lifespan of all the UVs on the market. So no bulb will emit UV indefinitely. They all have a lifespan, and this is the really important thing when it comes to UV and making sure that our animals are healthy, because it's all right having a UV bulb, but if you don't replace it, once it becomes exhausted, you might as well not have a bulb on there at all. So you're just wasting money with electric, basically. So you need to make a note of when you're buying your equipment, and you need to change it within its lifespan. So don't let it go 4 or 5 months if it only emits UV for 3 months. If it's 2.5 months old, swap it out and get a new one in there. Or if it emits UV for 6 months, at 5.5 months old, swap it out for a new one. And then that way you're ensuring your animal's getting optimum levels of UV, and it's not having a time spell where, well, there's a little bit of UV, but not a lot. So that's one of the types of compacts. And then in my hands, I've got T5s and T8s. So these are strip bulbs. T5s are the little compact narrow tubes, and T8s are the wider ones. And again, there's a difference between the lifespan of these two products as well. So when you're doing your research on bulbs, have a chat to your local reptile store. They should be able to explain the difference to you and explain why the different options are better than one another. So it's all to do with short-term costs, so how much you spend when you initially purchase the setup of equipment, and how much you spend going forward, and how frequently you have to change the bulb. So they're all things that you can take into account. But these are obviously, there are a number of species, and the list is quite long, so I'm not going to rattle it off, which they're essential for the setup in one form or another, depending on the size of your setup, where your bulb's positioned. There are a number of variables that affect UV, so make inquiries, have conversations. The more you understand how the equipment works, the healthier and happier your animal's going to be.
Yes, it is. Thank you for watching Bristol Reptile Emporium's YouTube channel.
Don't forget to subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you next week for another video. Bye!
Bye!